Welcome Junior Techies, my name is Mrs. Ramlal. This video I've prepared for the grade 12s to help them with their final exam preparation. In this video I'll be looking at the Limpopo Prelim, the paper 1, the 2014. I've selected this paper because the questions that I've found in this prelim are quite amazing and unique, and it's good to go over challenging questions. Right, but before you watch the video, make sure you have the question paper and the memo with you at hand. Right. 1.2. Give the correct biological term for each of the following descriptions. Write only the term next to the question number in your answer book. 1.2.1. The growth movement of plant organs in response to the stimulus of light. So it says response to the stimulus of light. We know that is phototropism. 1.2.2. The collective name for the three small bones found in the middle ear, those are the ossicles. It said collective name. Okay. 1.2.3. Cells that respond to dim light and provide peripheral vision, we know that is the rod cells. 1.2.4. A mistake in the process of meiosis where both members of a pair of homologous chromosomes fail to separate. We know this is non-disjunction. 1.2.5. A method of reproduction in which the fetus develops in the mother's uterus. Develops in the mother's uterus. In the mother's uterus, that is vivipary. 1.2.6. A disease in which the fatty myelin sheets around the axons of the brain and spinal cord are damaged, leading to demyelination, multiple sclerosis. 1.2.7 I've removed because it is based on human impact. 1.2.8. The phase in meiosis where the chromatids of a chromosome separate, anaphase 2. And 1.2.9. An interaction between two endocrine glands where change in the hormonal production level of one is referred back to it, resulting in an opposite response that is a negative feedback mechanism. Right, 1.3. Indicate whether each of those statements in column 1 applies to A only, B only, both A and B or none of the items in column 2. Write A only, B only, both A and B or none next to the question number. I've again removed 1.3 because it's based on human impact, and that is not in your syllabus anymore. So the questions in this paper that I've removed are based on human impact, and there's no need for us to go over it because it's not in your syllabus. 1.3.2. The beginning of the human embryonic development of process. Beginning of the human embryonic development process. So the beginning we know is implantation and not fertilization. So your answer is B only. 1.3.3. A visual disorder which is corrected with a biconcave contact lens. I know and we know it is A only. So short-sightedness, your answer is A only. 1.3.4. A hormone that is produced by the adrenal gland. We know aldosterone and adrenaline is produced by the adrenal glands. Your answer is both A and B. And 1.3.5. The process that ensures that each of the daughter cells formed by cell division will contain precisely the same amount of DNA as the parent cell. We know that that's DNA replication and not protein synthesis. So your answer is B only. Right. 1.4. The following diagram shows the location of some of the endocrine glands and the function or malfunction of certain hormones of a human. Study the information below and answer the questions that follow. 1.4.1. Identify the medical condition indicated by A. Now, can you see this person's neck? And can you see by her thyroid gland it's a bit swollen? So we know that that condition is goiter. 1.4.2. State the cause of the condition in A, goiter. That is caused by an undersecretion of thyroxine. 1.4.3. Name the hormone secreted by B that stimulates gland C to secrete milk. Now, we know the pituitary gland produces prolactin that acts on the mammary glands. 1.4.4. Name two target organs indicated by A, B, or C. So in A, B, or C, there are two target organs. So we must name them. So we know one of the target organs is A, the thyroid gland, and the other target organ is the mammary gland. Right. 1.4.5. What hormone and its concentration causes gland B to secrete less TSH? So that is obviously going to be what's the concentration? A high thyroxine level in the blood, right, will cause gland B to secrete less TSH. 146. Which hormone controls the development of gland C? We know that is estrogen. And 147. Name the process during which females become sexually mature. We know that as puberty. Right. Question 2.1. The testis contains many convoluted tubules in which the male gametes or sperm are found. Convoluted tubules are tubules that are coiled or folded. 2.1. Explain why the ovary does not consist of long convoluted tubules like the testes, for 4 marks. Now, an ovary will only produce one ovum every second cycle, and it does not need a large surface area. Whereas the diploid cells of the testes produce a lot of sperm cells continuously, and they need a large surface area to contain a lot of diploid cells, so they can produce a lot of sperm. This is a nice question. 212. Describe the process of spermatogenesis. That's easy, straight from the exam guidelines. The diploid cells in the seminiferous tubules of the testes undergo meiosis to form haploid sperm cells. 213. State the course a sperm must follow from the time of its maturation to ejaculation. So, when the sperm is maturing, it goes to the epididymis, then it travels via the vas deferens to the ejaculatory duct, and then leaves the male's body through the urethra. Here, you must have the correct sequence and the names of the structures. That's a nice question as well. Right. 2.2. In what sense is a homologous pair of chromosomes identical? Now, they're identical in size and shape, and then any coding for the same characteristic or position of the gene, or the linear arrangement of the genes. Right. In what sense is a homologous pair of chromosomes non-identical? They do not carry the identical genes. Right. 2.3. Study the sketches of the developing stages of the zygote below and answer the questions that follow. So you can see from 1 to 6 different stages of the zygote. 2.3.1. Arrange the stages in the correct sequence by using the numbers provided. So we know it will first be 2. Then you can see 5 by mitosis. Then, so one cell doubles to 2, then to 4. Then many cells is 1. Then you have your morula, and 3 your blastocyst. So here they wanted the correct sequence and the numbers all for 2 marks. 232. What is 3? 3 we know is the blastocyst, and 6 is the ball of cells, the morula. A nice question as well. 2.4. The graph below shows the approximate concentration of progesterone and estrogen in the blood of a mature woman and the thickening of the endometrium over a 28-day period. Use the graph to answer the following questions. 241. From the graph, give the cause of the monthly bleeding known as menstruation. Now, if you see, there's the thickening of the endometrium, that's menstruation, and according to the graph, what happens? Of course, can you see that's going to be a sudden drop in the progesterone levels? Okay. 242. Predict how these cycles are going to be influenced if a woman has only one ovary. A lovely question as well. So menstruation and ovulation will continue to take place once every cycle of the 28 days. The remaining ovary will continue to produce mature over each cycle. Now, there's a misconception, if you look at the note, there's a misconception that each ovary takes a turn ovulating every other month. In fact, ovulation occurs from whichever ovary has the most mature ovum for that cycle. In some women, one ovary may ovulate significantly more than the other. So that's the misconception. So make a note of this. That's a very nice question. So how the cycles are influenced if a woman has only one ovary. Right. 243. Differentiate between the various stages of development of the follicles at numbers 1 and 2 on the graph respectively by giving their names and functions. So 1 we know is going to be the primary follicle. It will contain the primary oocyte. That was the detail we did in the past. You don't have to know that anymore. 2, of course, is going to be the Graafian follicle, and it's going to release the secondary oocyte in the process of ovulation. Again, we don't do primary oocyte and secondary oocyte. It's not in our syllabus anymore. But still, a nice question. 244. Discuss the importance of the ovarian and the uterine cycles synchronized exactly for fertilization and implantation to take place. Now, this is a very nice question. Ovulation takes place on day 14 of the menstrual cycle. Fertilization takes place high up in the fallopian tube. So it takes about 5 to 7 days for the embryo to reach the uterus. If the endometrium was not thick enough, implantation of the embryo will not occur and the embryo will die. So that is why the ovarian and uterine cycles are synchronized exactly for fertilization and implantation. Nice question. 245. Explain why, if the corpus luteum remains after fertilization has occurred, no new follicles will be produced. We know the progesterone produced by the corpus luteum inhibits the formation of follicle-stimulating hormone, thus preventing development of another Graafian follicle and eventually prevent ovulation as well. Nice question. This is the question I needed you to know because I've never seen a question like this with such difficult questions in any prelim again. All right. 2.5. Describe 3 ways in which ovovivipary maximizes reproductive success. So you have to describe 3. So it allows the mother to produce fewer eggs. So it's not costly for her in terms of energy expenditure. The embryos or eggs are less vulnerable because the mother protects the embryos against predators or cold temperature. And the young are born fully developed or precocial development occurs so they can escape predators more easily and they're able to get their own food. Again, also a very nice question. Question 3. The following table shows the relationship between skin temperature, internal body temperature, and the rate of sweating of a man in a sauna or hot chamber set at 45 degrees. The man drank ice-cold water after 25 minutes. So here you have time in minutes, internal body temperature in degrees, skin temperature in degrees, and the units of sweat. 311. On the same set of axes, draw 2 line graphs showing the relationship between skin temperature and the internal body temperature for the first 35 minutes of the experiment. Indicate on the graph the time ice-cold water was swallowed. Right. So there you have your graph. You will have the relationship between skin temperature and internal body temperature of a man in a sauna or hot chamber, 45 degrees for 35 minutes. That's your heading. You took it from the instructions. Here you have temperature as your one dependent variable, time in minutes. You plotted your points. You got a mark for the correct title of the graph, the type of graph, the label and unit for the X and Y units, the appropriate scale for the Y-axis. And then, can you see the time the ice water was swallowed? It's also correctly indicated. Right? You got a mark for drawing the graph of the skin temperature. You got a mark for drawing the line of the internal body temperature, and your keys had to be correct. So a very nice graph, very lovely graph, very difficult as well. Right. So remember, it tells us the man drank the cold water after 25 minutes. So that is where you put your line, after 25 minutes. Okay. 312. Explain why the skin temperature rises shortly after ingestion of the cold water. So after ingestion of the ice water, what happens? So can you see? His body temperature, his internal body temperature, obviously, starts to decrease. So it falls. So the hypothalamus detects the fall in the temperature. Blood vessels in the skin will constrict. Less sweat is produced. And the skin temperature will then rise, as you can see. Also, a very lovely question. 313. Calculate the time it took for the man's internal body temperature to go back to its initial temperature after the ice-cold drink. Right, so if you see, the initial temperature is 37.5. So how long did it take? So it's 45 minus 25, 20 minutes, as you can see. Nice question again. And 314, how many dependent variables are in this experiment? Here you're measuring internal body temperature, skin temperature, and units of sweat. So there are 3 dependent variables. Then 3.3, Study the diagram below and answer the questions that follow. Then, describe the changes that have to happen to structure 1 to bring a decrease in the size of structure 2. So 1 is the iris, 2 is the pupil. So they're asking a decrease in the size of the pupil, so that's when the pupil constricts. So what happens? We know the iris, right? We can see is number 1. What will happen? The radial muscles will relax, the circular muscles will contract, and the pupil will constrict to let less light in. 3.4. A group of small boys were climbing and playing in a tree. One of the boys decided to hang upside down from one of the branches. 3.4.1. Describe how receptors in the boy's inner ears responded to the changes in his body position and helped to maintain balance. So now he is hanging upside down. So that's how his head is working in relation to gravity. So the macula in the sacculus and the utriculus respond to the pull of gravity and register the position of the head as the head is upside down. This initiates nerve impulses and this travels to the cerebellum. The cerebellum, we know, will send messages to the skeletal muscles to restore balance. Right, that's a lovely question as well. And then 3.4.2, differentiate between a reflex action and a reflex arc. We know a reflex action is a quick, automatic action that involves the spinal cord but not the brain. A reflex arc is the path along which an impulse is transmitted to bring about a response to a stimulus during a reflex action. Again, very nice questions in this paper. Hence the reason for me choosing it. Right, thank you grade 12s. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Join me and watch all my other videos as well.